Welcome to another Fresh Perspectives episode. I'm here today with a good friend, an old friend, Raffi Glickman, who is a social worker who works in a variety of different therapeutic settings in the Cleveland area. Raffi, thanks for making time to meet with me.
Yaakov, thank you so much for making the time to talk to me.
So, jumping right into it, the
Yeah.
first prompt, as usual, in terms of being curious to hear from you, what is your perspective on something that you see either in our community or in society at large as something that, through the lens of mental health and psychology, you're seeing as being a relevant and important issue?
Okay, so I think that this is a great question, and obviously there's many ways to answer it. But if I had to choose one thing, I would say that I'm seeing a lot of impatience. I'm seeing a lot of um, people unable to be patient with themselves, first and foremost, and forgiving of self, of shortcomings, and unable to be able to be in the present with the people that matter most to them, whether it's their spouse and or their children. Um, and a lot of it also stems from fears and shames. I think that a lot of people have a lot. People are very shameful, and they don't want to talk about things that they're maybe struggling with because saying something out loud might be admitting that it exists. I share with some of my clients, Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world, Basar Mamaros. Like God created the world through 10 utterances. And once those utterances left Hashem's, so to speak, mouth, um, the ball is in motion. And saying something similarly, making it real and putting it out there, you don't have any control of it anymore. And I think that people too much don't know how to start talking. They don't know how to start talking to themselves and being honest with themselves. Um, yeah, and I think that amidst the busyness of how we are raising kids, I know myself, being of the millennial and generation that grew up with iPhone, if you will, it impacts us. And I think people aren't able to separate themselves from their iPhone because it is part of their identity, and they're unable to, yeah, deal with those things.
I really like that answer, impatience. That's powerful, just that one word. What
The
are
pick, yeah,
some
yeah.
some ways that you see that we can try and increase our capacity, our tolerance for things taking time, for developing more
Absolutely.
patience with ourselves, with others, with processes?
So I will take poetic license a little bit in this. I think that a lot of it is inability to be authentic. I know that like when I saw your book come out, I was so excited. Part of me was kind of so like, wow, like this guy was at my wedding. I was in Kola with him, and like we were in similar career paths. And like there's a certain awe that I think, I'll be honest, like I have a certain appreciation and reverence for you. And I think that like that was really hard for me to like I found maybe like it'd be too, who am I? Like who am I to like talk to this individual or know the way they've been through? I knew there was a lot of depth. Like you can see a lot of depth in how you conduct yourself, carry yourself, and clarity and brilliance, and how you able to say things. And I think like I really took a more recently um, took an approach of being more honest with myself and authentic with myself and listening more to like what's my wife telling me and what like someone who really knows me. Like she's not out to get me. She wants an easier life for herself, an easier life for me. And I think like Ezu Chacham Alomi Kol Adam. I think that's something I can really try to be patient with. And like there is something I can learn from every single person. And that's part of the reason why I went down the rabbit hole of all your podcasts, because I think they're all so amazing and you networked amazing people. And even though I'm not in like the same space as you or even some of my friends here, like even the rabbi at my shul has an amazing podcast, and I make sure to listen to that. Or a colleague of mine has an amazing podcast. I think we're too afraid. We think of, our colleagues and peers. They have so much to offer. We don't just have to like be lamenting on the past of like what everyone else has contributed. There's real chachma going around in our circles, and like if we can really see the and give each other the kavod that we're in, like, this is Erev Tisha B'Av. I was thinking about that today. Like, how apropos is it that we're speaking Erev Tisha B'Av at a time that, like, lo nagu kavod zevazeh. Like, we didn't have this type of kavod. We didn't treat each other right. Um, and I think, and I remark on, I was sharing with a friend of mine. There was a video going around. I don't remember if you remember in pandemic, but there were these groups of Talmidim that came together in coronavirus. They were in these Corona hotels and these yeshivas. Were all at the same hotel, and like it looked like yeshivas Mashiach times, where all these people from Panovich and Merkaz Rav were learning together. Ezu Chacham, we call it. We're all learning the same thing. Why are we fighting each other? Why are we like? There's no reason. There's no, and I think that if we can kind of like let down our guard, let down our shame, let down our like people aren't out to get us. Like we're here to help each other. And unfortunately, when it comes to tragedy, is times that like we really do come together, and I would like to see more people coming together not in tragedy. I shared with some friends. I really like to make there's Al-Anon, there's Sex Health Anonymous, there's all these anonymous, but I want to make a grow anon. People that can show up and like just be present, bring whatever they're dealing with, and like air their laundry without any judgment, because everybody has laundry. And I think that's something I learned from Rav Dov and the Laf Laf thing. I've been to Rav Dov a number of times now, and I've learned a lot about like the power and growth in groups and power and in the workplace. And I think the more we can be authentic with what we're experiencing in the moment will allow us to be more authentic with other individuals. And I think that's why I started reaching out to people that I know are authentic. And I think that's part of the reason why I started blasting you with WhatsApps or blasting other friends of mine with WhatsApps, is I reach out to people who are authentic. And I think that we need to be looking for authenticity, looking to be authentic with ourselves. And yeah, I think that that's something that's really important.
First off, that's an amazing idea. Growing anonymous or some other name, but
Yeah,
it's so necessary, because there are it's so funny because that you say that, because there's so many times where I feel like, I mean, and for myself too, but for people in general, where it's like what's going on in those kinds of groups is something that so many
so
people
powerful.
need, even if they
Oh
don't
my
have a
God,
specific addiction. And because each
absolutely.
of those groups is focused on a specific addiction, people who don't fall into that particular category, it's not the right setting for them. But the
I,
dynamics of what's going on is what everyone needs.
it's
In some
so
way,
important.
shape, or form, it would be awesome. So just to kind of, before shifting to the second half of this, just
Sure,
to kind of tie together maybe like a loose end here. You started out talking about impatience,
sure,
and you're
sure, sure.
talking now more about authenticity and vulnerability. And tell me
Yes,
if this is right. What I'm hearing as the connection maybe is that one of the ways that we can access more authenticity is when we have patience. Because if I'm
yes,
impatient with myself, if I'm impatient with others, etc.,
yes,
and
yes,
impatience literally but also figuratively, meaning that I have space, that I
absolutely.
that I'm okay, I have tolerance for the way things are, so
Yes,
then I can be more authentic, more real with myself and others. But if I'm
yeah,
impatient, I don't have the capacity for that.
right. And I think that the impatience stems from a number of areas. And yeah, I appreciate you bringing that back, because my ADHD will definitely have that effect on me sometimes.
No, I think they're very
Yeah,
connected. I see the
no, there
string
are a
that you're
million.
that
It's
you're
it's two
creating.
sides.
Yeah.
It's two sides of the same coin. And I think that like I too often, society kind of dictates what you should be, what you shouldn't be, where you should be, when you should be there, what steps you should be at what point, and what looks like success. And I think that like there's so much um, more gray to what people reaching their potential looks like. And unfortunately, we're too swept, because whether you want to blame social media, parents, or any combination thereof, um, there's something to say about when you hang out with people who are older than you, and them reflecting on life and taking things slower. I'll give you an example. I started riding a bike again, and it was my happy place, and I really wanted a bike, so I got my bike, and I fell a few times. But you pick yourself up. You got to learn to you don't forget how to learn how to ride a bike, but you can get a little rusty, if you will. And
Yeah.
I think it's humbling to fall, because it's good to get back up. It's good to get a scratch here or there because, the blessing of the skin knee, whatever it is, we're not, but I recall even in those moments when I was patient with myself on a turn, I don't need to race anywhere. I'm not racing anybody else. I'm here by myself on my bike. No one's judging how fast I'm going, how slow I'm going, how far I'm going. Only I know. And that's all that matters. Be patient, be safe, and take your time, in whatever it is you do. And there's a line by one of my rabbis in yeshivas used to say is, if you start something and don't stop, you'll eventually finish. And too much, I think we're caught up in like the culture of like, in a positive way, of like, even if it's a good thing, like people starting to do daf yomi, like all jumping on the band. Like if you don't know why you're doing it though, and it's going in one ear, out one ear, you're making the time, which is a value in of itself. But is it changing you? Is what you're consuming really becoming a part of you? And that's what I mean by impatience. It's like, are we being patient with our, like, thinking and paying attention to what are the things I really enjoy? What am I actually passionate about? What will give me real book from like my work, for my family, for my children? What really matters here? Because at the end of the day, like the most important thing in my life is my wife and my children, and the legacy that I want to leave for them is one of like giving them everything that's a part of me, and they deserve all of me present at any given moment. And granted, that's a level to reach, but it's something we should always be striving for. And I think that it's important to leave our egos at the door and be more patient with ourselves when we mess up, even. And that's a big piece. Like when we mess up, what do we do then? Do we get back up and do we keep trying and go a little slower and like realize that, okay, maybe I can't do daf yomi. I started doing amud yomi instead of daf yomi. And that's only whatever. And like little things. We need to be honest with ourselves, patient with ourselves. And listen, I'm 33, and I think this last 6 months I've been like doing my own introspection and learning about myself, and I've made strides and leaps and bounds in different ways because I've been more patient, and because I've been listening to my wife and listening to the different things, listening to what my children's needs are, and being authentic in the conversations I'm having with them.
So much more to say about this. So
Absolutely.
shifting just for the last few minutes that we have into
Sure.
the second part of this, which will be shorter than the first part, but
Sure.
something that you see as a strength going on in our community or society at large.
I think the strength, and it's a davar pasha, is I think that more and more there are people going into the mental health field that are bridging the connections for those that need them, whether it's from religious backgrounds to the mental health area. There's a lot more positives that are coming from being able to be connected to individuals, like being able to read your books or listen to your podcasts, or listening to the 1840 podcast of our good friend of David Beshefkin or whatever. Like I think the strength is that there's a lot more openness, and people are becoming a lot more open to the fact that like I can't do it alone. And I think that that's a positive thing.
If somebody is trying to start, a little bit of what you just said, you've been maybe exploring for the past 6 months or so, of trying to get a little bit more open with themselves, a little bit more introspective, how would you offer them a starting place? Where would they begin?
Ask their spouse what they need to improve in, and realize, no, I'm being honest. I mean,
Yeah, it's a good answer.
I think if you're able to realize that like you're living a life together with somebody, and it's no longer a life, there's only one Hashem, and there's only one, and that's Hashem. And there's a reason why it takes two people to create life. And if you're able to be strong enough and realize that like the things that you need to change or fix about yourself, and giving in, being mavatal yourself for something greater, which is for your wife or your children, for the shalom bias and bringing Shekhinah. You only can bring in Shekhinah. You can only bring in kedusha through bittul, and you need to learn. You need to be really mavatal, and that's very hard, very very hard. And if you can do that and not get defensive,
Love
and
that answer.
it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's
Yeah,
important.
really love that answer. Raffi, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Yaakov.